Well, greetings one and all, and welcome back to another video with your host Andrew. Over the next few weeks I'm going to be doing some starter guides to getting into collecting fountain pens, and I'm going to be actually looking at it from both a starter's perspective as well as someone who may be a school student and looking to get their first pen. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be looking at why you should be getting a fountain pen in the first place. We'll be talking about the positives of actually using one of these writing instruments. So without further ado, let's crack on with the video and roll the titles. So, ladies and gentlemen, first of all I have to thank Bernardo Gomez from the Fountain Pens UK Facebook group for the suggestion of doing today's video. Many weeks ago we had been talking about actually what content people might like to see on this channel, and actually Bernardo suggested doing some starter fountain pens for school students would be a really good idea. So I thought, you know what, that's a really good idea. And then I got in contact with Cult Pens, who have been sort of collaborating with for the last few videos, and I put it to them. I said, you know what I think would be a really good idea is actually to talk about fountain pens and look at fountain pens from a starter's perspective. And they said, yeah, that's a great idea. Brilliant, let's do this. So they very kindly gifted me 6 pens, of which I've got 4 here for you to have a look at today. But I'm not going to be looking at the pens so much in actually the actual manufacturers so much, but maybe talking about the similarities and the differences between some of these pens, and there are some. So I thought it might be quite fun to have a look at these pens in some closer detail. So thanks to Cult Pens for generously gifting these pens, of which this one's certainly going to be actually up for grabs if you so wish to have it. Now, in order to do this, I'm actually going to be doing this over Instagram and on YouTube, just to give it a sort of a level playing field. So how do you actually have a go at winning this pen? Okay, so if you're a existing collector, this is perfectly acceptable to, to try and win. All you just have to do is simply here on YouTube, just in the comment section below, just say what you like about fountain pens. Okay, what attracted you to fountain pens? What was your first fountain pen? So those 3 things: what attracted you, what got you interested, and what was your first fountain pen. Put that into the comment section below and you'll stand yourself a chance of winning this pen in the colour of your choice and with the nib grade of your choice, and that is a Faber-Castell grip, and I will do that worldwide. It's a inexpensive pen, but actually it's one which is absolutely fantastic. So we'll be having a look at this one in future videos, doing some writing samples, and as I say, this will be split up over a number of weeks just to sort of break it down into manageable bite-sized chunks. Now, we have got some other pens which will be given away in the future, and I will be doing that maybe over the next few months or so. I just thought it'd be quite fun just to do some monthly competitions, and the announcement for this pen will be after the 25th of July. So yes, have a look out for that. It gives you plenty of time to enter. Anyone who is new to the channel and would like to have a go, we'll give them plenty of time to actually enter, and then I shall announce those winners, as I say, approximately after the 25th of July. Okay, so thank you to Bernardo for the suggestion. Thank you to Cult Pens for generously gifting these pens. So let's now get on to why you might want to get into collecting fountain pens and what are the benefits. Okay, I don't know about you, but I have collected all sorts of things in my life. I've collected Lego, I've collected precious stones, I've collected coins in the past, and I have done various other hobbies. But none has been as accessible as fountain pens. Now, I didn't intentionally start to collect fountain pens. About a year and a half ago, just going to give you my origin story, by the way, I decided to start doing a lot more ink art, as I just love these sort of marks they can put down. I had been using dip pens in my workplace. I work in a school during the day and work in an art department and also as a teaching assistant. But within our art department, we have had access to dip pens, and they really are absolutely fantastic to use. But the problem with a dip pen is that they have a tendency to run out very quickly, whereas with a fountain pen, they just go on and on and on. So that was part of it. But, and I say a big but, it got to a point where I thought, I'm not going to use fine liners because I've been using fine liners for quite some time. When they ran out, I had to buy a new fine liner. And whilst, buying a fine liner isn't going to break the bank, I'm also quite mindful of the environment. I just don't like the idea of having to throw pens away. So I decided to get myself a Mont Blanc fine liner, where I only had to throw away just the refill. I thought, that's great. But it still wasn't getting me to the place where I wanted. So I started looking at various other pens. I looked at rollerballs, I looked at ballpoints, and then I remembered my childhood years of using a Parker Jotter. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to start looking at fountain pens because I noticed that they came in various different nib sizes, different finishes, and I thought, you know what, this is going to be great because I can go from an extra fine up to a broad, even a stub nib, and it's going to give me a lot of line variation for my artwork. And since then, I've fallen down a bit of a rabbit hole to a point where I'm now doing weekly videos, or to best to my ability, doing weekly videos on fountain pens. Who would have thought? Anyway, that's how I got into it. Why might you want to get into it? Well, again, if you are a collector and you want to start getting into something relatively inexpensive, fountain pens won't break the bank. We've got a Lamy Safari here, which retails for around about £20. You can get discount off at Colt Pens, and I've got that in my description below. And it won't break the bank. You could, if you're on a very limited budget, you could buy yourself a Lamy Safari probably once a month, and within a year you will have yourself a very nice collection of pens. Now, a Lamy Safari isn't going to be for everyone, but that's the great thing about fountain pens. There is a pen out there for all budgets and for everyone, which is great. So they come in different colours, different nib grinds, different nib grinds, yes, and different nib sizes. I emphasise on grinds, and I'm going to talk about that in a future video. But yeah, they really are quite scalable, to be honest. And if it's a £3.49 pen, okay, here, to some pens which cost into the millions of pounds, which I don't strangely have, to be honest, not on my salary. But there is a pen out there for everyone. And I think it's such a diverse sort of community as well. And talking about community, having since got into collecting fountain pens, it's not a community which I've fallen into where there is a sort of divide between different sort of brand snobbery, I guess, for the better of words. I mean, there are brands out there which people like more than others, but there is a respect generally for most brands out there, and certainly for everybody's collections. There's not anyone out there, whether you're collecting pens which cost millions, you don't get this sort of snobbery of going, ew, that's just a Lamy Safari, ew, that's just too terrible. Have a look at my lovely Monte Grappa Viking pen. Isn't it just so wonderful? You don't get that. You don't get that at all. And I think that is the wonderful aspect of the community. It's a very inclusive community, and it's a community which is, generally speaking, a very pleasant one to be in. Yes, there's issues down the line, but I'm not going to talk about that because that will be your own self-discovery. But generally speaking, it's the nicest community I've ever been in. And again, as I say, there's not really any snobbery, not that I've come across, which I am very grateful for. So, now on to why choose a fountain pen, the pros and cons. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the comfort. The comfort of the fountain pen is paramount to me. There should be an expectation that all nibs work, and that is generally the case. There are manufacturers out there which do have some problems with nibs not going through the quality control properly, but generally speaking, mostly from companies like Lamy or Faber-Castell, they write out of the box, and that is absolutely fantastic. So yeah, if you are going to get into collecting fountain pens, you're not going to go wrong with getting something like a Lamy Safari. And the great thing about this pen is that it does give you a high degree of comfort. Now, not everyone's going to get on well with the triangular grip. I will make that a very standout point, but it is, for me, a comfortable pen. And like the actual Safari, on the Piccolo here, which is from Caveco, we've still got this sort of like triangular grip section, but with a sort of a third facet underneath. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3 facets on this pen, and it does make for a exceedingly comfortable pen to actually write with. So your finger can rest underneath whilst your other two fingers rest on top, and it does mean that when you're writing with this pen for an extended period of time or doing some artwork, it's very, very comfortable. So why is comfort so important? Well, it should be pretty self-explanatory, but there are actually some psychological benefits to actually writing with a comfortable fountain pen. If you're relaxed with your writing, you're going to think better, okay? And if you can think better, it means that you're going to flow better. And if you can flow better, you're going to end up probably with sentences which are more grammatically correct. Now, there have been studies done which have actually supported this. And basically, it does highlight the fact that if you have got a learning difficulty, whether you're dyslexic or if you've got Asperger's, actually writing with a fountain pen puts you into so much more of a relaxed state that actually you'll find writing less challenging. Okay, I'm not going to say it's going to turn miracles. That would be folly of me to say so. But generally speaking, it is going to provide you with a much more relaxed and enjoyable experience. And that really is what the point of actually using a fountain pen is. It is to create an enjoyable and relaxing experience. Now, of course, fountain pens have been around for donkey's years, and since then, we have had rollerballs and ballpoints come out and all sorts of other wonderful writing technologies, but the fountain pen has stayed. Okay, now there was a massive dip in the 70s when rollerballs and ballpoints started becoming into the limelight a little bit more, but generally speaking, the fountain pen has stayed around. And although we have seen many companies fall by the wayside, we have seen many more come up. And certainly in the recent years, since places like YouTube and Instagram have sort of gained popularity with journaling, fountain pens have become really I would say, almost like king again. And so that is really, really exciting. Now, beyond the comfort of using a fountain pen, I think it's important to highlight the fact that you do get a variety of different colours, like I mentioned, but you also get a variety of different ink colours. Okay, so ink colours are really, really important because it allows you to express yourself, whether you're doing pen friend letters, whether you're writing articles or whatever. Actually, collecting inks is another rabbit hole you can fall down. And I know in Japan, collecting fountain pen ink is possibly more popular than actually collecting the pens themselves, which is fantastic. If you can get yourself hooked on collecting fountain pen inks, actually the fountain pen is the next logical step, isn't it? So it's almost a a marriage between hobbies, I guess, because fountain pen inks have almost sort of separated into their own hemisphere, I'd say. There's a lot of artists out there which use fountain pen ink, whether it's using with a brush or a dip pen. It has really sprawled into this massive, massive market. Beyond that, of course, we've got to think about the ecosystem of our planet. Throwing bits of plastic away isn't great for the environment. So, by being able to refill cartridges or by using various different filling mechanisms in a pen, we can use that fountain pen ink to massive gains. And it does mean that we are cutting down a little bit on the carbon footprint. Not massively, but it's doing its little job. So that's one thing to also consider. Okay, so that really gives you some pros and cons. I will be talking about the nib grades a little bit more in detail, as well as some other factors in videos going down the line. Now what we're going to do is talk about the anatomy of a fountain pen. So join me over at the table and we'll have a quick look at that. Right, ladies and gentlemen, so what we're going to do to start with, we're going to have a look at the similarities between these two pens. Now there's one obvious difference, and that is the one here on the left doesn't include a clip, but the one on the right does. Now you might be asking, well, what's the point of having a pen without having a clip? No, not everyone likes having clips on their fountain pens. Some people like having the actual design speak for itself, and sometimes some people actually consider having the clip on the fountain pen to be a little bit obtrusive for that. So that's partly one reason. Also, if you start getting into decorating fountain pens, actually not having a clip on the pen is massively helpful. So that is partly why there is no clip on some fountain pens, in that it does offer a little bit more of an aesthetical difference. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to talk about the actual parts of the pen, very much akin to my other videos, And I'm going to actually talk a little bit more about the actual naming conventions. So on the top of the pen, we have got the finial, and these do come in a variety of different types, as demonstrated here. We have got like a torpedo-like or bullet-like top on this one, whereas this one is a flat top. Now the other two pens we've got are quite flat as well. Whereas on the Kaweco, we do have, hopefully this will focus, there we go. We do have this little medallion on the top of the finial, and that is really quite stylish, I think so anyway. And then if we look at it from the profile, you can see it sort of juts out just a little bit. So the ends of the pen are called the finial. We then come on to the cap here. On this case, as I say, it doesn't come with a clip, whereas on, say, the Safari, we've got this very iconic looking clip, which looks like a paper clip. And then we come on to the main barrel itself. Some pens will come with an ink window, which is demonstrated here on the Lamy Safari, and some come with none. Okay, if you've got no ink window, what you'll have to do is just undo the barrel and have a look in under the actual barrel itself. But on the Lamy Safari, we do get the ability to check that without having to take it off. So that might be one reason to why you might want to get yourself a Lamy Safari. I will be doing a comparison between all these as entry pens, plus two others in another video. But for today, I thought it would be just good to talk about the anatomy and the pros and cons and reasons for collecting. Okay, sometimes you get a little bit of branding on the actual main barrel of a pen. So on the Lamy, we've got it here, which is imprinted. Wonderful. And then underneath, we've got the section. The section is where you hold the pen, and then we have the nib. Okay, now if I hold the nib up a little bit closer to the camera, you can see we've got this quite sleek looking nib on here, and it doesn't necessarily look like what you would stereotype as a fountain pen nib. In fact, if we have a look at the Kaweco, which is a slightly smaller nib, this has a much more traditional looking shape to it, as opposed to that of the Lamy just beforehand. If I bring it a little bit closer, you'll notice that actually we've got a little bit of scroll work on here. We've got the emblem, and then we've got the nib grade, which is signified by the M. And the M stands for medium. There we go. On the bottom, we have got a plastic feed, which is the material of choice for a lot of pens these days, although you can get ebonite. Now, you might be thinking, well, what's ebonite? Well, ebonite is basically a hard rubber, which actually for a feed does provide a slightly better ink flow. That's not to say that plastic feeds are rubbish, they're not, but they can actually provide a slightly better ink flow. So that is the nib. And I'll just show you the other ones here. So as I say, we've got the Lamy Safari, and that's gone extra fine on there, as designated by the EF. On the Faber-Castell grip, we've got a broad nib, and you'll notice that we've also got a breather hole on here as well. So we're now going to talk a little bit more about the nib. So the nib comes in various parts. We've got the shoulder, which is on the corner here, and then it comes onto the tines, and then onto the iridium tipping. And you'll notice that we've also got a slit down the middle with something called a breather hole, and that basically all helps with the action of getting the ink from the actual cartridge down onto the iridium point. And you'll also notice that on this one we've got a little bit of artwork in the form of some jousting knights with some fountain pens, which I think is quite awesome. Okay, underneath the actual section, as I have shown you, we do get a little cartridge, and generally speaking, when you buy a fountain pen these days, they'll all come with a short international style cartridge, and some will come with a longer international style cartridge. That's not to say that every company does that. Unfortunately, Lamy don't. So if I just undo the Lamy Safari here, this is a proprietary ink cartridge. So you can only buy Lamy ink cartridges. That may be a pro or a con, but generally speaking, if you get their piston converter, or cartridge converter I should say, let's just move that strap out of the way. you can then use any bottled ink, and then that's not proprietary at all. So there are a variety of different finning mechanisms, and I want to talk a little bit more about that in depth in the next video. Anyway, that really brings it to the end of today's video. I hope you've enjoyed today's introduction. If there's something which you'd like to see in some future videos on the introductory of fountain pens, then feel free to leave that in the comment section below. Don't forget the competition, and I shall see you next week. Till then, stay safe and goodbye for now.